SmackDown is a very bad show. I mean, it is what it is, man. It's dynamite at this point. And also they fired people. So we're going to talk about that. SmackDown, February the 7th, 2024. There were a group of firings. It started with Cedric Alexander. It seemingly came out of nowhere. People were confused about whether he had released or whether his contract expired. And then he hashtagged see you in 90, which means that he was fired. This was followed up with AOP, the Authors of Pain, along with Paul Ellering, Sonya Deville, and Blair Davenport. So as far as I know right now, those are all the people who have been released. Let's talk about AOP, because this is the second or maybe the third time AOP have been fired. I mean, Triple H brought these guys back because Vince didn't know what to do with them. Oh, Vince, he was such a bad booker. He didn't know nothing to do with AOP. Triple H was going to fix them. Huh! He fixed them, all right. He fixed them on 6-figure salaries and then cut them 2 years later. We're still blaming the old man for this kind of stuff, though. Paul Ellering getting released along with them is unfortunate, but Paul Ellering's a very old man as it is. So, he probably shouldn't be traveling as often as he does. But I hope he enjoyed, his last couple of years in the business. I feel bad for Paul Ellering because it's kind of humiliating to be fired for the WWE twice in the same decade. Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville is a big surprise. She's been in WWE for a long time. I think she's been there 10 years. I think she debuted in 2015, maybe 2014 or something like that. Sonya had a really big run during the pandemic where she had that really awesome storyline with Mandy Rose that was cut short due to a home invasion where she was the victim, and she never got on track after that. I think she had an injury or something shortly after that too, and she was off TV for a really long time due to the trial of the guy who attacked her, and I think she also had an injury and some other things that occurred, and it just derailed her career. Any attempt to bring her back and do anything kind of fumbled. She did a really good job when she was tormenting Adam Pearce on Monday Night Raw. She was kind of like the co-general manager. That was really fun too. It showed you that Sonya Deville had some chops as somebody who could talk. Why Triple H didn't use that, beyond me. The constant theme music changes, her being saddled with Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Notice they didn't get fired. Unfortunate. She got fired for not being able to pull off the Herculean task of getting people to give a fuck about Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. That's unfortunate. Oh, your team's not over and we don't know what to do with you. Huh? Okay. Sure. Look, Sonya Deville, good talker, good personality. She's going to kill things in TNA. In terms of wrestling, we haven't seen a lot of what she could do lately. I know she had a bad match with Lyra Valkyria recently. I think that was a couple of months ago. She didn't really do much in terms of wrestling in recent months anyway, so I can't really tell you. But she probably needs a lot more time off to reinvigorate, change how she approaches the business. Just needs a new environment. She's been around for a long time. But anybody who tells you that Sonya Deville is no good, it's like you wasn't paying attention. Sonya Deville had talent. There was potential there. The company dropped the ball and some things happened that was outside of their control. Then you got Blair Davenport. This poor girl. I think she made 2 entrances on SmackDown and then she got benched and that was it. That was it. She came into NXT with a lot of fanfare. She's one of the few people that actually survived NXT UK when they got rid of that. They brought her over to NXT proper. And then she was sparingly used in NXT proper. It seemed like she was always on the cusp of winning the title. And then she would get just there and then that would be it. She would never actually win it. She was just challenged and then she would fall just short. It didn't look like she might actually work out on the main roster because Triple H had started taking over. He cared more about the work rate girls. But he didn't give Blair Davenport any chance at all. Now, this is not a Vince hiring, because Blair Davenport, aka B. Priestley, she was signed to work in NXT UK. All right? So that means this was a Triple H prospect. Triple H, she was a top, free agent from the Indies. And a lot of fans are kind of like, oh, she'll go back to Japan and make oodles of money and all this kind of stuff, or she'll go to AEW or she'll end up in TNA, which the likely this thing to happen is her end up in TNA, and all that will be fine. She's going to be fine, but in terms of WWE, completely unfair. She was not given any opportunity to do anything. When you look at how they book people on SmackDown, the fifth Piper Niven versus Bianca Belair match, for God's sake, we just absolutely needed to have that. We just gotta have B-Fab wrestle. Heavens to Betsy, if Chelsea Green can wrestle somebody other than Mia Yim. There was plenty of opportunities for you to do something with this girl. He just chose not to, for whatever reason. I guess when she starts doing shoot interviews and was this, maybe late April, because that's when the 90 days will be up, we'll figure out what the problem was. But for right now, she's just a girl with a lot of potential and never achieved that potential. Cedric Alexander is an interesting case, however. I looked and he's only 35, which I am very surprised by, because he's been in WWE 10 years. I thought he was older than that, because I know he was in Ring of Honor and other wrestling companies before he came to WWE. He seems to be a shoe-in to go to AEW just because it fits him stylistically, and also he has a natural tie-in with Shelton Benjamin, Lashley, and MVP, as he was a member of the original Hurt Syndicate, the Hurt Business. Well, not the original, that was the Beatdown Clan in TNA, but the original idea of the WWE version of the Hurt Business. A lot of people just blamed Vince for Cedric Alexander's lack of success, as Vince didn't quite know how to utilize Cedric Alexander. He's kind of plain. He's not much of a talker. He has some charisma, some personality, but it's not, jumping off the page. He was a work rate guy brought in for 205 Live, and he managed to survive that. I'm surprised that Cedric Alexander lasted as long as he did. I'm not even going to hold you up. I think it was the right time for Cedric. He just been around for too long. And they had no interest in pushing him beyond being a jabroni in NXT. And if you're going to bring him down to NXT so that he could be a leader of the division, a top guy, then sure. But if he's just going to be a jabroni, man, just get rid of him. What's the point? And there's a lot of guys, as I look at the list of people who have been released, and of course, naturally, as you watch this show, you realize that Akira Tozawa got 10 minutes on this show. And you fired Cedric Alexander. Look, I get it. People be like, don't do that. That's not fair. It ain't about fair. People have eyeballs. How the fuck did you manage to keep Akira Tozawa and you cut Cedric Alexander? How the fuck did you manage to keep some of these people who are genuinely god fucking awful professional wrestlers, and you keep them? And I mean by awful, I don't just mean that they between the ropes. I mean no personality, no character, no gimmick, no reason to exist, and they're still there. The only excuse is, hey, they re-signed Kevin Owens and they re-signed Alexa Bliss, so now they had to cut people because they re-signed these folks. They reallocated the funds. Sorry, our pockets are inside out. We can't afford it. But I look at it from the perspective that Blair Davenport never achieved her potential. Neither did Sonya Deville. And Cedric Alexander was always going to have a ceiling on his head due to the fact that it's WWE. And he doesn't have the charisma and the personality to overcome his size and his genuine lack of promo. He's going to do wonders. If he decides to go to TNA, he can do great there. He could also do great in AEW. I would prefer it if he went to TNA. Why go to AEW and be a lackey and be a guy who eats pins when you can go to TNA and be a star? You know, that's just my thought process. Maybe you'll get paid more if you go to work for AEW. And what about that question, by the way? Because AEW disrespected his wife. You know, remember Tony Khan tweeted out that Big Swole, who is the wife of Cedric Alexander, she wasn't good enough for their roster. Maybe that should be taken into consideration, you know? But maybe the money is going to be there for AEW. He just needs to have a job, you know? And he could wear a suit and hang out with Lashley and Shelton Benjamin and make that easy money. TNA needs some talent. They need to make a play for him. He gonna hold you up. Cedric Alexander is a very talented work rate guy. Serviceable on the mic, but he's not great. You know, TNA is not a place where that matters much anyway. You know, they like athletic guys. He's young enough to make he's old enough and has enough experience that he can make an impact. But he's young enough that he could be there for a long term. And I mean 5-6 years. So, of the firings, the Blair Davenport one is probably the most offensive, considering she didn't really have much of a chance. And when you consider that Maxine Dupree is still around, B-Fab is still around, and, you know, other women with no talent are still hanging around. Now, at least B-Fab has some personality. You know, but Zoe Stark doesn't. She's a good wrestler, but I guess that's good enough. Shayna Baszler, I mean, my God, she's 40-something, can't talk, and she works like Bob Backlund. You know, they must have just made her a trainer. And maybe that's what they'll do, and maybe that's the reason why Shayna Baszler didn't get cut. But Shayna Baszler has been washed for years now, since at least 2019. You know, but we're going to blame Vince. It's Vince's fault that Cedric Alexander didn't become world champion. Not the fact that he's 5'8". Not the fact that he can't talk. You know. But, you know, he did a good job in the Hurt Business. And he did a good job in NXT. He's a good talent. Let's get into the rest of the show. Jey Uso, of course, does all the yeeting. He has a thing with Cody where they have a moment where they talk about maybe fighting each other at WrestleMania and making history. Jey Uso is not sure that he wants to do that. He's still thinking about it. The reaction to Jey was not as strong on Friday as it was on Monday. People did, you know, jump up and yeet when they started doing it, but when you see his entrance, there's just people kind of sitting still waiting. You know, and then once he got up on the ropes and started doing the up and down thing, everybody just joined in. So they're trained SEALs. They know what they're doing. So Cody and Jey Uso's tense moment is interrupted by Jacob Fatu, who says that Cody took the title from his family, but his family needs it back. And Big Cuz, that would be Jey, can't be the one to bring it back. Jey then attacks Tama Tonga, and then a brawl ensues where Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso actually run off Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. Not a big fan of this, but this is typical Cody booking where, you know, he's stronger than everybody, which is fine. But Jacob Fatu, this is like the second or third time that he's been in this situation where he kind of starts a fight and then Tama loses it for him. Later on in the show, Jey Uso meets R-Truth, who thinks he won King of the Ring, which is hilarious. Yeah, legitimately funny. At this point, Cody approaches Jey again to see if he's changed his mind, if he's figured out what he wants to do yet, and Jey hasn't. So we go into the tag team main event. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso defeat Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga. After the match, Solo Sikoa attacks Cody Rhodes, and the internet has a fit. Solo Sikoa has finally returned after a month, and the internet has had a fit. Okay? They are very mad about Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes being restarted. Now, let's be honest about this. We don't know where this is going. This is Solo in a hoodie. He's not wearing a suit. It could be that Solo is back in his bodyguard role. And, he's working as an enforcer for somebody else now. Am I trying to get people's hopes up and saying it's The Rock? Yes. Because I'm 90% sure it's not The Rock. But I'm just trying to put a positive spin on things. This is garbage, right? He lost the last match he was in. Why would he be wrestling Cody now? He was beat to shit at the Tribal Conflict match. Tribal Conflict? Tribal Combat match. And he was beat to hell and beat in the middle of the ring. That was the last time we saw him. He wasn't even man enough to show up to the Royal Rumble. And now he's going to come in and just attack Cody? Come on, man. The internet is right to complain about this. The year-long Solo Sikoa push, it was mid. It was very mid. I'm not going to say it was garbage. It was mid. Because Solo Sikoa, I don't think, was prepared for the role. It seemed to me like we were waiting for the big bad. Like when you're dealing with that mid-level boss and he just doesn't seem to go away. But eventually you knock the mid-level boss out of the way and then the actual big boss steps in. But it seemed like this Bloodline story slowed up because the actual big boss never stood up. Which is why I wanted to play the little thought game that maybe Solo is coming back into this situation because now he's going to be the henchman again. But you can't be a henchman again. It doesn't work that way. Maybe he's going to help Jacob. Maybe he's going to step aside and say, I'm going to help Jacob win the title this time. That could be the case. But when do you fit Jacob Fatu wrestling for the title into a major angle? Because now it's Elimination Chamber season. Are you going to have Jacob or Solo wrestle Cody at Elimination Chamber? You could do that. If that's going to be the case, I would certainly go with Solo. Because I don't want Jacob to lose. And I think Jacob getting beat before WrestleMania would not be good. I think you keep him strong the way they've been keeping Gunther strong, except you don't have to put a belt on him. Jacob he's special. Don't have people just go in there and beat him. I know that they're like, oh, it's Cody. It's not that big a deal. They did this with Solo, where Solo wrestled Cody on TV, and then Solo lost. And that was one of the few times Solo lost before he became a main event guy and lost a lot more, which is backwards. But, I would keep Jacob strong until I want him to win something. That's what I would do. So if you want to have a Cody and Solo match to avoid Jacob Fatu taking a loss, I'm willing to stomach that. Just keep Jacob strong. So you're playing the long game here. But am I interested in Solo versus Cody? Hell no. Hell no. Not justified. Moving on. Bianca Belair defeats Piper Niven with the KOD. We've seen this match 100 times already. So now Bianca has qualified for the Elimination Chamber. Why? Why, man? Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we having the same matches over and over again? Why is Bianca in the Elimination Chamber? Why? Why are they not furthering this angle with Jade Cargill at all? Are we about to see Jade Cargill on the chopping block? I think at this point in time, it's now starting to have that conversation. All right? When you look at they're cutting people, especially people who haven't been on TV in a long time. At least Cedric Alexander was on TV 2 weeks ago when he got cut. He wrestled Ethan Page not that long ago. But Sonya Deville, I think she made an appearance on Raw. I don't think she wrestled. But Blair Davenport hasn't been on TV in months. AOP haven't been on TV in weeks. Right? We haven't seen Jade Cargill in over a month. And we're not actually hearing her name that often either. Are we at the point where WWE is just going to cut their losses and say, look, this Jade Cargill thing ain't working. We're going to fire her? I mean, that would be embarrassing, considering all the fanfare that they had in bringing her in. And this is one thing that I say about Vince. Vince had follow through. If Vince, was serious about you, there was some follow through. Even when it comes to Lex Luger, he didn't put the belt on Lex. He never stopped pushing him. Maybe he never fully gave up on Lex until right before Lex left. Because even though he saw that Lex wasn't working, he didn't turn Lex into a jabroni. He was still there. He was still a top level babyface. He was still feuding with top guys, kind of, top heels. Until right before he left. If he'd have really gave up on him like he gave up on Tito Santana, he'd have turned him into a jabroni. But he didn't. I don't think Vince would have given up on Jade Cargill at all. He'd have forced it. And that's what Triple H needs to have. He needs to have some follow through. If you're going to go through all the trouble to bringing this girl in, even though people have been yelling about her limitations, but people are talking about what her potential is outside the ring and her charisma and personality and such, force it. Say, fuck it. She's going to have to get good as quickly as possible. Throw her in there. And if she looks bad, you're going to have to choke through it. WCW did it with Bill Goldberg. Vince did it with John Cena and Roman Reigns. You do it until they get it. Because you've gambled already. You got to have some buy-in. But if you're going to, push forth all this effort and then back out at the last minute, you look wishy-washy. That's no conviction. I'm looking for vision here. Where's your vision? I want Triple H to move this storyline forward. I don't want him to cut Jade Cargill. I want him to move this storyline forward at some point. At some point. Carmelo Hayes wants a bye from the Elimination Chamber, just like John Cena got. It's only fair. He could cry racism, but he's not going to. Nick Aldis says he's going to have a match against a Raw superstar. I rolled my eyes because I figured it was going to be Akira Tozawa. That's exactly who it was. And then they wasted everybody's time because this match went way too long. The only positive that came out of this was during the backstage segment, Akira Tozawa yelled airball at Carmelo Hayes, who likes to use basketball references. The basketball puns. And the crowd caught on to it. They saw that it bothered Carmelo Hayes, so they started chanting airball at him, which is the most over Carmelo Hayes has been in forever. But this desire that, we're going to give him jobber matches now after he lost to everybody on the roster. And then it's not even really a jobber match because it was sort of competitive how Tozawa was hanging in there. It's like, why can't he just beat this fucking guy? What is happening? You're not doing this guy no favors. I'm tired of yelling about Carmelo Hayes, man. He's going to end up on the Summer Jam screen, dog. I already know it. It's unfair. It is what it is. DIY had an in-ring promo. They stunk up the joint. Talking about beating the Motor City Machine Guns. They wanted to have a moment of silence, but they were interrupted by Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly came out to no response. And Nick Aldis made a match between the two of them as they wanted to give Pretty Deadly a tag team championship match, but they have to earn it. So Pretty Deadly actually beat DIY by cheating, by grabbing the top rope. Later on, there was a promo by the Street Profits as they complained about new faces coming into the division, acting like they've been there the entire time. They talked about teams breaking up and getting back together and how they'll never break up, which is obviously planting the seeds for them to break up. But Montez Ford's like the passion he sees in Angelo Dawkins. And they're coming out to get revenge and win tag team championships. I gotta admit, bros, I didn't like this. This does not feel like the Street Profits to me. This felt like a generic, angry team. And I didn't like Dawkins' performance in this either. It was kind of wooden, like he was reading a script. Like if you go back to the high energy Street Profits, that felt like that's who they were. This kind of feels like they're trying to force a New Jack City kind of thing. Even Montez Ford now is rocking a grill. I don't know. And Montez Ford has such personality. This feels like it's shackling him. But I'm willing to give it some time just to see how it plays out. But I don't know if turtleneck Street Profits is what we need to see out here. You know, if they're gonna be Nino and G Money, they need to dress a little better, right? And they should go with that. That's what they were going with when they were working with Lashley, right? They were wearing suits and stuff. Just go with that. Watch New Jack City and go with Nino and G Money. You know, that would be fun. Motor City Machine Guns were yelling in the locker room. They got accosted by Angel and Umberto. Who cares about any of these people? I like Angel and Umberto, but they're going to be on the lightless walk no one time soon, eventually anyway. The tag team division is complete disarray because Triple H tried to force the Motor City Machine Guns onto everybody and force DIY. But the people that he forces don't have any charisma and no personality. So a bunch of 40-year-old white guys who are all under 5'10", just having a tough time here, folks. It's not good. It's not good. The Street Profits and Pretty Deadly are your two most entertaining teams. Pretty Deadly are jabronis, and you're not using them correctly to maximize their entertainment value. And you're trying to force the Street Profits to be, I don't know, super tough guys? I guess. Whatever. But DIY and the Motor City Machine Guns being the centerpiece of your tag team division was a huge mistake. It was a mistake, dog, and I think it's okay to just go ahead and admit it. At another Elimination Chamber qualifier, Drew McIntyre defeated LA Knight and Jimmy Uso. In order to try to make this somewhat interesting, they had a promo segment where Drew McIntyre said he was thrown from out of the Royal Rumble from behind by a coward, meaning Damian Priest. Said he was enraged, and then he went home, took a bath, whatever, and had a moment of clarity. Why was he so angry? And said that he was a product of his environment and that Raw is toxic. So he was recruited to Smackdown. Now he's here to fight Cody. Jimmy Uso came out. Drew McIntyre says that, hey, you could be just like Jay if only you had said yeet first. And so everybody started bickering back and forth. LA Knight came in. LA Knight blames Jimmy Uso for him not being world champion. Says he wants to bring some good vibes and be a good change in the world. Gave us a mental health tip that it's okay for men to cry, but you can always take it too far, just like Drew McIntyre, who he called Drew Mackin-Cryer. And then he says, oh wait, I forgot to get my stuff in. To which Drew actually kind of smiled and shook his head. So, of course, they're playing off of the internet meme of Drew, being mad at the Royal Rumble. That was funny, actually. I like that. So they had the match, and Drew actually kicked LA Knight in the head from behind while he was holding Jimmy Uso for the BFT. So it seemed like a 2-for-1 deal. And Drew McIntyre won the match to get into the Elimination Chamber. When is LA Knight going to get something? Something. It's time for him to be elevated. Again, this guy's no spring chicken. I was kind of down on LA Knight. I was kind of actually neutral on LA Knight. I like him. I think he's funny. I think he's entertaining. I think he's certainly a main event guy for WWE at this point, considering who they pushing as main event guys. But my Lord have mercy. There's a anchor around his ankle. And people have been talking about this for about a year now, about the limitations on LA Knight. It's becoming more and more obvious. Did we really need Drew McIntyre in this match? How many title shots and opportunities is Drew McIntyre going to get? Just endless, right? And I mention this because the next qualifier features Damian Priest, who is not nearly as over as LA Knight. And if you're Triple H, how are you choosing which of these two talents you're going to push? Are you listening to the crowd? Because if you're listening to the crowd, LA Knight's more over than Damian Priest. So wouldn't you push LA Knight over Damian Priest? That would make sense, right? I don't have a problem with you pushing Damian Priest. I like Damian Priest. But the fans and everybody else seem to like LA Knight more. So why are we not doing anything with LA Knight? You know? Oof. Just one big old oof. Whatever. Braun Strowman is going to be in that match too, and there's going to be a third party in that match. I don't know. I don't care. But this Elimination Chamber qualifier on SmackDown, they're doing these stupid ass triple threats. I'm not surprised, man. Let's just get it over with. Next, Kevin Owens is sitting in his car again. He's crying. He's talking about being scarred and traumatized, and all this stuff is permanent. And it's Sami Zayn's fault because he watched Cody Rhodes try to end his career, and then he turned around and tried to help Roman Reigns in the Royal Rumble. Said that he's a horrible friend, he's disgusting, and he's going to make him pay. I don't care to see these guys wrestle again. And I saw the tweet of what Kevin Owens says that he promises to wrestle for another 4 years and 11 months if we buy Girl Scout cookies. And I wanted to tweet at him, if I buy Girl Scout cookies, do you promise to wrestle one more hour and then retire permanently? But, you know, I don't respond to tweets if it's been like 10 hours since it was posted. There's no point. I want that guy out of here. Anyway, Charlotte Flair had a promo with Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton says that she's a big fan of Charlotte. She was the biggest fan of Charlotte. And she didn't think WWE could survive without her until she came along. And now business is better. Gates are up. Everything's great. And Charlotte's been gone. Charlotte says that Tiffany Stratton should speak when spoken to. And then Tiffany Stratton said that she's tired of being compared to Charlotte. So she wants Charlotte to pick her so that she can beat her. Charlotte Flair says that Rhea Ripley was a kid, but Tiffany Stratton is a child begging her to make her a star. She says, you want me to challenge you? Get on your knees and beg. I was like, They're playing that nice little role with Charlotte where this crowd actually liked Charlotte, but they still had Charlotte go heel. so that worked out fine. I actually like that Tiffany Stratton is stepping up and wants to fight Charlotte. I like that both Tiffany and Rhea want to fight Charlotte. That's good. That's actually good. Considering they're both baby faces, I guess. What I don't like is that Nia Jax showed up. Nia Jax apparently is going to get her rematch against Tiffany Stratton. And I said Triple H is obsessed with Nia Jax. Nia Jax just wrestled for a championship at Saturday Night's Main Event, which was about 3 weeks ago. She was in the Royal Rumble and came in dead, one of the last two people just last week. What is going on? Does she have one of his children tied up in a basement? Does she have a lockbox or some pictures or something incriminating on Triple H? Why is he focusing so much on her? Get fucking real. Moving on. Candice LeRae, who no reaction whatsoever. Nobody cares about her. You can literally hear roaches rubbing their tendrils together when she's in the ring. She's wrestling Alexa Bliss, who did not get a chance to cut a promo. The only heat of the entire match comes from Candice LeRae stomping on the Lily doll. And then that didn't even lead to the finish. They continued to have another 2 or 3 minutes of match afterwards. Alexa Bliss won. So her trajectory is about the same as it was last year. She comes in, she wrestles 1 or 2 matches. She's mostly silent. And then she's shoved in an Elimination Chamber match. I think she wrestled Bianca in a singles match, though. But, whatever. Who cares, man? Let's just move on. And that's pretty much the entire show. There was some Chelsea Green stuff. It doesn't matter. Mid stuff. Who cares about any of that shit? Smackdown is just a really bad show, man. It's becoming very much like Dynamite. But it's worse than Dynamite because at least Dynamite features their stars. I've said that before. I think I've said that every week since this Smackdown slump has started. The Smackdown slump, they've been getting 1.4 million people, which is down like 30% from last year or something like that. It's something crazy. This has been a disaster, and it's all the booking. It's all booking. They switched the title to Cody and then did nothing. They gave him work rate opponents the entire year. AJ Styles and Kevin Owens and guys like that. It's not working. And then he feuded with Kevin Owens for 6 months. And, not pushing the right guys, not taking chances, too conservative with his booking, relying on the bloodline without Roman Reigns. There's just a lot of issues here that's leading to the SmackDown slump. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. So maybe when WrestleMania starts, they better hope The Rock shows up. That's her only chance.